Nobody's listening. That may be the theme of this particular show. Andor has proven to be both a critical and a fan darling, but there's some questions in the fandom about whether anything is actually happening on this show. Is Andor a show about nothing? Is it a show where nothing is actually happening? um, these are all questions that I'm not going to try and give you the answers. I have the panel here for that today, and we're going to definitely do a deep dive into what Andor is, especially talking about it in the context of this week's episode, episode 9, Nobody's Listening. My name is Lord Deathman, in case you haven't heard my voice before, and this is the review of Champions. Today in the arena, we do have a packed audience, or at least we hope the audience outside who's listening is packed, but we certainly do have a handful of champions here that can speak to Andor with some expertise, because we've been watching the show avidly and we've really, really liked it. Before we go any further, though, I wanted to let you know that we are going to be discussing spoilers for this particular episode. And I do have to give out the obligatory plugs for our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Also, you might want to check us out on sakar.freeforums.net if you'd like to participate in the conversation. If you join the forum there, you might have an opportunity to hash it out on the air with the rest of the champions. We want to thank you for listening. And without further ado, I'm going to jump in and introduce today's panel. First, we have the fan without fear, Taylor. Let him know how you're doing today.
Hey, I'm doing good.
All right. Grandmaster, presiding over these ceremonies. How are you feeling today?
Very good.
Yes. And last but certainly not least, we also have Merv in the arena today discussing a little Andor with us.
How are you?
All right. Thanks to the panel for being on here and having this discussion with me today. I'm going to leap right into it. For those of you who don't know the format, we do 3 rounds of discussion. First round will be our quick impressions of the show. Second round is going to be a deep dive and analysis. And our third round, we will finally give the show a rating. That's the most exciting part, so you want to hang out for that. So starting, with Taylor. First off, I'd like to get your quick impressions on the episode Nobody's Listening. And maybe you might want to share some thoughts in terms of the criticisms this show has been getting. Not a lot of fan service, not a lot of the usual Star Wars trajectory of bombastic action and lots of aliens and set pieces. How do you think this show fits in to the Star Wars sort of program on Disney Plus?
Well, I thought it was a good episode overall. It advanced the storyline through, dialogue and observation for the most part. Not a lot of action in this episode. As far as the criticism goes, I understand it because, this is normally considered an action franchise. But this show really is not an action show. I mean, you might consider it like an old-fashioned action movie. Like, for example, The Dirty Dozen was once considered to be like a milestone of action, but there's no real action in that movie till like the last 20 minutes of the movie, It's more like along those lines. It's a lot of character development and storytelling, and then short, intense bursts of action throughout the season so far. And I'm fine with that. It's just a matter of taste. I guess some people just aren't used to it, but I think if they, give it a chance and really pay attention to what's happening in the show and the brilliant writing and dialogue, like I said, I think a lot of people would like it, including most Star Wars fans.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you on that. The show is a really strong dramatic presentation. And I might go as far as to say is you never want to have a story where nothing happens, but this is a story that's much more procedural and isn't really driven by a plot or trying to get to some arbitrary obstacle on the map for the season. But that being said, Taylor, thank you for the initial impressions and comments there. I'm going to jump over to the Grandmaster to get your thoughts on this. I mean, they used to levy that criticism or compliment on Seinfeld, right? Seinfeld was the quintessential show about nothing. Do you think Andor falls into that category? And while you're at it, let's have your quick impressions about the episode as well.
No, this show falls not into that category. I think it's actually very intriguing and very suspenseful, and there's actually a lot of things happening. Only it's I think I best describe it as this is what's happening to Star Wars when you actually have a well-written story and a well-written dialogue. It's actually good, and that's something that a lot of Star Wars projects lack. So that label.
Tell us how you really feel, Grandmaster.
Well, no, I don't get me wrong. I like Star Wars, but it's all magic and space wars and action and a little bit of romance in there. This is grounded. This is suspenseful, intriguing. This is I wouldn't say realistic because we're still somewhere in all scattered all across the universe, but it's much more grounded. And actually, I'm loving it. I think it's the best Star Wars has ever done, at least since the original trilogy. And maybe even it's on that level, but it's totally different. But I would put it on that level. Indeed. And this episode was testament to that statement.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. Another strong episode. I think the episodes get progressively better in their own way. I don't feel like any of them have been a setback in the progression while we've been watching them and been weaker than others. I do think that they do get stronger in their own right, depending on what the theme of the episode is. So that being said, I'll thank you, Grandmaster, for those initial impressions and talking a little bit about some of the criticism out there in the wild about the show. Last but not least, we have Merv talking about your initial impressions on the show. And, also, if you want to address some of the criticism, tell us, what do you think Andor is as a show? Does it feel like this is Disney's run at a prestige piece for Star Wars? Is this awards bait? Because we've seen incredibly strong performances in the show. Maybe this is like, this is our play at getting some Emmys here in Star Wars.
I'm not, I don't really know if that's their main goal with the show. I think it's probably in the categories of Emmy nominations, but I don't really pay attention to the awards or anything. But if they were looking to make a well-written, well-acted, very interesting product, they've succeeded in that so far.
Yeah.
So kudos to them for that. And also stepping out of the box a little bit with their, typical Star Wars flavor, and taking a character like Cassian Andor, it's not Darth Vader, it's not Obi-Wan Kenobi, it's some guy from one movie, and right. Making him the lead, and then focusing on very, again, it's space, it's still set in the Star Wars universe, but it's a different flavor, and personally, I like to think I have a variety of tastes, you know what I mean? I don't always want vanilla, or chocolate or whatever. So I really like that it's the same world, but you're getting a different style, you know what I mean? So I think this show succeeds in a lot of different ways. The Star Wars films can get, similar feeling and tedious. I think the sequel trilogy proved that. So, but as far as this episode goes, I loved it. I think this show has a really good way of building the pressure within their own little mini arcs that they're having. And At the end of this one, it was like you could see the lid on the pot ready to boil over. It was great. I'm so excited for the next episode. In this one, the acting was fantastic. Everything in the prison was great. The way that they, hinted towards some things and paid them off later. The side character arcs, just everything in that section was great. And overall, I'm just really enjoying the show in this episode especially.
Yeah. sometimes we get what I would call a cosmetic look at fascism in Star Wars, because fascism is I'm wearing a cape and I'm going to, throw it around my shoulder, or I have a weapon that destroys an entire planet. But this is really kind of taking you down into the mundane details of being in a labor camp, of having an oppressive regime sort of putting their finger on the population of the galaxy. And, the show is called Andor, but we do see a lot of different characters. We delve deeply into their different lives and struggles, but it all revolves around Andor. It all can be brought back to him as an individual. And I think that that's just a masterful component of the show. A show that revolves around its main character, but doesn't have to have him there for like 99.9% of the screen time. So, but in any event, thank you so much, Merv, for those initial impressions of the episode. Now's the round where we're going to go into deep dives. We're going to talk about what we might have liked, what we disliked, memorable moments, anything that comes to mind with regards to this particular episode. And we'll start this round off with the Grandmaster.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy because in this episode and actually in this show, the Empire is finally showing some competence. I mean, Mira, my God, she was scary in that scene with Biggs. I mean, I got scared when watching it. I mean, not really, but I mean, I get that feeling. She is impressive, and. She may be overly ambitious for the structure she is in, but when you talk about fascism and history, I mean, she reminds me of like a Gestapo SS type of character. And the actress, I don't know her name, haven't looked it up. I had other things on my mind, but she's doing an amazing job. I really like this character. Of course, I want to see her fall. Along with her would-be boyfriend, we had some fun about this already on the board. But
yeah.
The moment Cyril stops her on her way to work, there was some sexual tension there, no doubt. And I'm curious where to see where that goes. But no, Mira is definitely one of the better parts of the show, and that's saying a lot. And I absolutely love that character. By the way, in that interrogation scene, when they put the headphones on Biggs and then she starts to scream, they do an excellent job in sound editing. When they switch to the drill, that was excellently, really well done. I love that part. Talking about the prison thing. It's Hotel California, and they realize it. They can check in anytime they like. Well, they don't like it, but you know what I mean. But they can never leave. And that moment, they realize that they will never leave, and that the Empire will just kill them off if they are too rousy. Excellent moment when they walk away from Olaf's corpse, and he asks again how many prison guards on what level, and then he says 12, never more than 12. I thought that was an excellent moment. It was. He finally seduced Kino Loy to his side, and that's a theme that happens in Star Wars, seducing, and there's a lot of seduction going on in this episode, and I really liked it. And finally, what I noticed was one beautiful shot made by the director. I really loved it. It was the moment when Val has left the apartment of Mon Mothma, and she stands there alone between two open doors. And I think it was kind of symbolic because she stands alone, stuck in the middle between the Empire and the Rebellion. And she kind of serves both. Of course, she's not really serving the Empire, but she's a senator and so one could look at it that way. She's torn between, you can tell that. And of course, finally, what I noticed is Mon Mothma is now getting her hands dirty by getting into financial relations with some kind of criminal. So I don't think her standing will hold long. And of course, we've seen her in the rebel bases later on in Star Wars projects. So I think that's that transition from her being a senator, having parties, and trying to finance the rebellion, and she's not really committed. You constantly get that feeling. But now I think you will see that transition to being one of the rebellion's leaders, and being in the bases and no longer in her apartments. Overall, I really love this episode. There's a lot of intrigue and things going on, which don't require a lot of action, but still it's very suspenseful, and it brings me to the edge of my seat every single episode. Excellent writing. I have recommend the director and everyone working on the show. It's really excellent, and I hope Kevin Feige takes a look at what Andor is doing, because I'm just going to say it. Andor is the best show on Disney Plus, not even for Star Wars, but also it's above all Marvel shows for me.
Yeah, and those of you out there who thought we were just a cadre of MCU fanboys, you heard it here first. The Grandmaster has declared Andor the best show on Disney Plus, and I think I'm inclined to agree with him. So your notes are very searching, and in particular, I just want to fill in some of the blanks for the audience. The actress who is playing Deidre Mira, or Supervisor Mira, her name is Denise Gouge, and she is doing some fantastic work. I feel really sorry for her boyfriend, because when she looks upset, it looks like she smelled something horrible, right? It just, she has the look of like having encountered some offensive smelling garbage whenever she's upset or disappointed. Kino Loy is the character played by Andy Serkis that you mentioned, who finally realizes that he is in a fascist regime. So it's sometimes fascism kind of creeps up on you. And we've seen that historically. And I think the writers of the show are doing a great job of showing you that there are people out there who may say, oh, you know, they're clamping down, but if I follow the rules, I will get out of this prison. I will have served my time and I'll go home. And Andor proves to Kino definitively that this is just an endless loop. And that's what seduces him over to the rebellion. I thought that was great filmmaking and writing on that particular part. But thanks again so much for your comments, Grandmaster. I'm going to jump over to Taylor now. Deep dives, impressions, what'd you like? There's so much to unpack about this show, Taylor, but give us your thoughts.
I agree with everything that Grandmaster said. The prison scenes were really good. I love those little quarters that they live in, those little modules that they live in that has their food and their water and everything built into the walls. But you could see that Andor has been thinking about escaping the whole time. He's been doing his research. In fact, there's that one part where he goes to the restroom and he takes out the panel out of the wall and he's trying to cut something. I assumed that's somehow trying to cut the power, which, as we know, is what's keeping them locked up, is the power in the floor and the remotes from the guards. So I assume that's what he was trying to do there. But I also like how he did get Andy Serkis convinced that escape is the only way to get out of this place. And I don't completely understand what was discovered or how it was discovered exactly. I know they said that when people are supposed to be released, they're just moved to another cell or another floor or something, but I'm not sure how that's kept a secret all this time. I mean, the guys working on that floor, wouldn't the new guy tell them? Or is there like one separate floor where they just put all the guys that they've moved out of other cells? And then those guys decided to riot or something and got killed, and that word got out. Again, I may need to watch the episode again, but I didn't completely catch all the details of it. But the bottom line is they know now that no one actually gets released, no matter how many shifts they do.
Yeah. And
I thought that was all really well done, the way they did it. The torture scene was also very, very well done, as he said. As far as Mira and Cyril, that scene was really creepy. And honestly, I'm really getting Norman Bates vibes now from Cyril.
Yeah.
All right. I'm starting to wonder, maybe his mother's not even alive and he's talking to himself in the room.
that would explain why his mom can only prepare cereal. That's the only.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think that's the case, but I'm just saying he's really giving me vibes that this guy is on a short, a tightly wound string here that might snap at some point. And he's got it bad for Mira.
He does.
Which I don't. Which she maybe she'll use that to her advantage, knowing how she operates. But I think I just think it's all great character development and acting by everyone involved. Other than that, not a whole lot else happened in this episode. I think, I kind of got into the sequel of the sequence of every third episode, something big happening, and I was kind of like, wait, they didn't have anything big happen. This is the third episode. What happened? Is this a very special episode to be continued? What happened? But that's okay. They don't have to keep it that way. Now that I know they're not going to do it the same way every time, I'll be fine. But yeah, overall, good episode.
Yeah, I have to agree there, Taylor. Another stellar episode. And your notes about the rhythm of the way the show goes. Every 3 episodes, we might have been expecting something huge to happen. But it just goes to show you that you can have a drama that doesn't necessarily have to follow a strict formula in terms of here's when the surprise is going to happen. Because if you know it's coming, it really isn't going to be much of a surprise. But just as a dramatic presentation, Andor is just so strong and so engaging that you're there, even if there are no explosions, no lightsaber battles, no exotic aliens, et cetera, et cetera. It still feels like a part of the Star Wars universe. And I'm deeply, the real test for me, the litmus test of how I know I'm into the show is that I am deeply engaged by the characters and their fates. I want to know what's going to happen to them. I'm very interested in their lives, whether they're on the side of good or evil. These are just well-drawn characters. So thank you for those notes, Taylor. I'm going to jump over to our last champion to sound off. Well, before I do that, I'm sorry. I almost overlooked a quick follow-up that Grandmaster has on Taylor's notes.
Yeah, it's about how the Empire kept it a secret or something. They can't. I think this is the first transfer they had after the PORD order came in place. And then they had to start to recycle the prisoners. And then the prisoners on 2 found it out. And then they started to riot because they knew they couldn't get out. And then they were unalived by the Empire. So I think this is the consequence of that PORD order. And that's why when the prisoners for the first time find out, they started to riot. So that's the thought I got from that particular sequence.
Yeah, I think that is a good summation of what happened. People are finding out, and the Empire decided to sort of de-life all of the folks that were involved in that on that level to keep their secret. So, but the bottom line, as Taylor said, is there's no getting out, and that forces people like Kino to make that choice to say, I'm going to be a part of a jailbreak. Effectively, I'm going to be a part of a rebellion. So, yeah. Thanks for that bit of clarification, Grandmaster. Moving on to Merv, you have the honor of getting in the last word in terms of the deep dive analysis. Tell me what you liked, what you might not have liked, and anything in between.
Yeah, well, first out of the gate, Mira gave me very much Hans Landa vibes from Inglourious Bastards. Right out of the gate, I got that, that interrogation, but that cool, collected interrogation. At least, right? I mean, obviously, she knew what was going to happen, and I also think the Empire using the dying screams of a race of children that has been extinguished as a torture device is probably one of the more evil things in the Star Wars universe that I can think of right now.
Yeah.
It's cruel on so many different levels, I think. I'm sorry.
As well, the fact that it got refined and layered on, that they perfected it, makes it even more chilling.
Yeah, to dissect it and figure out the best way to. I assume it has some kind of psychological, deep effect, clearly. But I love that they showed that Cassian isn't just whittling away his days. He's already starting to form resistance in this prison, and he's working with a few other people, and then, obviously eventually gets Kino involved. I liked the progression of Kino's character in this, where you see his structure unraveling as the scenes progress throughout the episode. You know, things are going wrong. His daily routine is shaken up, and you just see, like, by the end, he's done with it. You know what I mean? He's fully convinced that this isn't a good thing. But you can see the anxiety through Andy Serkis's facial expressions, like, throughout several scenes. It was so great. I also like that they showed Olaf, the character Olaf's health concern early, because I thought that was going to directly lead to something, maybe like when the medics come in, maybe that's whenever they're going to instigate their prison break or whatever, you know. But I was waiting for that. Like, they showed us that early in a scene, and then every scene after that, they kept showing him, like, struggling to breathe, forgetting things, like grabbing his chest or whatever, and it was just like, it was, you know, the bomb under the table. Like, they showed me that the whole time, and it didn't lead to a direct prison break, but I thought it was great.
Yeah.
The revelation that Vel is Mon Mothma's cousin, I thought was cool. Just getting that information. We just got the information that she comes from a rich family, and they didn't waste any time showing us which family she comes from. So I really like that. It's funny that Taylor mentioned, you know, whether Cyril's mother was real or not, because I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on. I was going to mention that. Like, I get very strong vibes that his conversations with his mother aren't totally real. Like, she's a projection of his mental instability, and that also comes with, like, us just seeing more of him in this state where he clearly looks disheveled and he seems like a wild card at the moment. And that adds together with the fact that, like, you know, she says she makes 2 meals a day, and all we ever see is him eating cold cereal. So what meals is she making? You know, I could totally see some of this being totally in his psyche. You know what I mean? Like, him just being revealed as kind of a broken person later on. And then the scene with Miro and Cyril was very awkward and uncomfortable. And it was also great because it put Miro way off her comfort zone. Like, for the last several episodes, she seemed totally in control in almost every situation she was in. In that scene alone, like, she was uncomfortable, but she was also, like, she has the power to, you know, arrest this guy and probably kill him, and she doesn't. So there's, you know, like Grandmaster said, there's sexual tension there or something there.
Right.
But, you know, it was just a very awkward, very stalker type interaction. But overall, I think that last line of never more than 12, I've seen that plastered all over Twitter already as, like, one of the greatest, like, line moments said in Star Wars, you know, history at this point. And I have to agree. Like, I just think the second he said that, you're like, yeah, you know, you just can't wait for it to happen now. You're real excited. But yeah, great episode. Great. Like I said, it's like a pot boiling and it's ready to spill over. So next episode should be fantastic.
Indeed. I think it will be. We do have a follow-up from Grandmaster, but before you go, sir, I do have one observation to make about the creepy caress, I guess, that Cyril gives Supervisor Miro. That's like the scene in, like, Casablanca, or one of those classic kind of beauty pictures where the man is about to declare his love for the lady, and except his is like a psychotic rant about the beauty of fascism,
right,
and how it sets him free. And I was like, wow, that's a different take on that. But I really enjoyed it just because it was not only erotically charged, but it was so counterintuitive from what you'd expect, like in that kind of environment, and what was going on between the two individuals. Very well played, you know, as everything on the show. But Grandmaster, please regale us with your follow-up.
Well, it's actually about that same scene and the follow-up, actually, and something that happened earlier on the show as well. Indeed, Mira walks away from that encounter very uncomfortable and upset, and then she walks into her room, and then there is her over-ambitiously assistant, who also stepped in during her meeting with the major colonel. I don't know what his rank is, but you know what I mean, her boss. he also stepped in, maybe overstepped his boundaries, and he did so again while she comes in already a little bit shaken up because of her encounter with Cyril. You can definitely see that things are growing over her head as well. As cool and collective as she may seem, she is also has a lot of tension in herself about the situation she's in. She wants to get somewhere, and she's not held by, lesser men, if I may say so. So, that's. I think. There's so much in the show, and it's so well written. I wish Kevin Feige would hire this writer these writers to make shows for him as well, because this is
not to write every, but just a couple of the Marvel shows with this level of writing, a real prestige piece. I don't know if any of you guys ever collected comic books, but I'm old enough to remember when they were just printed on newsprint, and that stuff kind of disintegrates after a while. But every now and again, they do what they called a prestige piece, and it was like on really nice paper, and it had a few more pages in it. And it usually had some, big to-do superhero story in it, but it was a limited edition type thing on Mando paper and using a different printing process. And Andor feels like that prestige comic book I would buy back in the day, the direct edition. But yes, great discussion. One of our best discussions, guys, in a while. I'm just going to come out and say it. I think just because this episode had so much subtext and so much to drill into, I really think that there's a reason why this show is such a critical darling and also being beloved by the fans. It's just giving people something new in Star Trek in terms of the overall language about how this is being put together. It is
You said Star Trek. Ooh.
Oh, I did say Star Trek. Oh my God. Okay. There's going to be a firing squad now. That's
wish
sniped.
You wish this was Star Trek.
Yeah, I don't want to turn this into a Star Trek bashing session, but doesn't Andor make every single thing? And I'm talking even Strange New Worlds. It really makes that stuff just seem ridiculously bad. That is my opinion. I challenge you, if you're listening to me and you want to come on this show and debate the merits of Andor versus the best of new wave Star Trek, I will happily engage you in that debate, because the vast majority of it is coming off kind of garbage. And you heard it here from the MC, no less, from the moderator, I should say. But yeah, okay, we're going to go into our final round here and kind of give the show a rating. So that being said, I will give this opportunity to you guys to give your 1 to 10 rating on this episode of Andor, and also to add any closing notes that you might have missed during your deep dives. I'll start with the Grandmaster.
Well, I just want to note that I loved actually the take from Taylor and Merv about Cyril's mom. My take was that I want to slap her in the face. She's so annoying, but that's just personal. I'm gonna give this week's episode a 10 out of 10. It was so good, and I wish everybody would see it the same way.
Indeed, never more than 12.
No, never more than 12. That's final now.
Yes, we get a 10 out of 10. I think the first of the series for you, Grandmaster, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely. I have been conservative so far because I just don't want to get hyped and then it falls flat on his face. But now they have shown 9 episodes of consistent high level, and every episode is so good. Yeah, I can't go. I have to go 10 out of 10.
Yeah, indeed. Taylor, what are your final thoughts and rating for Andor episode 9?
I'm going to give the episode an 8 out of 10. Thought it was very good. But I'm ready to step on the gas for next episode.
Okay.
I just want to say one thing about the series, and I hope at some point in the series they cannot miss the opportunity that they have here to bring back a beloved character and show us an origin story and of course I'm talking about Porkins, Red Six himself, has to be as part of this show at some point.
Indeed. Yes, the Porkins origin. He might need his own series, Taylor. Porkins.
That's true.
that would be awesome. I would be so at least a special, a one episode around Porkins. You heard it here, Disney. Make it happen. Make it happen.
Porkins holiday special.
Indeed. But yes, we got an 8 out of 10, a very strong grade. So, the panel continues to be impressed with Andor. And last but certainly not least, we're going to jump over to Merv. Any closing thoughts that you might have along with your rating for this episode, Nobody's Listening?
Yeah, just a few things. Again, putting my tinfoil hat back on for a minute. I think Mon Mothma's daughter is actually going to be a rat for the Empire. I think that's going to be a revelation later. And I think it's interesting, and it's probably going to be maybe the conclusion of the series, that both the Rebellion and the Empire are both waiting outside Marva's house for Andor to show back up. So maybe that's going to be the hectic final conclusion of this season, whenever he eventually does show back up and all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give this episode a 9 out of 10. I really, really enjoyed it.
Wow. Strong grades, reviews, and ratings from the champions here. Nobody may have been listening in this episode, but if you are not watching Andor, we have to strongly endorse that you do. Get out there, do whatever it is people do in social on Twitter to make sure that this show continues. It is truly the best of Star Wars. And as Grandmaster was so bold to say, it could be even the best of Disney Plus. So get out there and check it out. My name is Lord Deathman, and this has been the review of Champions. I want to wish everyone out there a safe, happy holiday season. Don't forget to turn your clocks back if that applies to you. And as always, may the Force be with you.